Wake up, samurai. It's time to talk about Cyberpunk.
Hey everyone, so just a quick little preface about this video. You're going to see gameplay from two different sources today, one of which is my PC, and one of which is my friend's PC, who's also editing this video. His PC runs the game a lot better than mine does, so if you see some disparity between the graphics or the frame rate in the gameplay that you see today, don't worry. It's just because we're pulling them from two different PCs. This game has a lot of differences depending on what routes you take and how you start the game off. So we wanted to kind of pull gameplay from two different perspectives to make this seem a little bit more equal in terms of what to expect. So thank you for listening. Hope you enjoy this video. So today we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077. But for those of you who don't really pay attention to video games or have been living under a rock this year, which I don't blame you, this year ain't been great. It's been a bad year. I'll give you a little background on it. So Cyberpunk 2077 is an open-world action RPG created by the studio CD Projekt Red, who is famous for the Witcher series, the video games, not the Netflix series. That's a totally different company. It's set in the Cyberpunk universe, which is a universe based off of the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG series, which has quite a few additions as far as I can tell. The game 2077 makes mention of events that happen in the tabletop series throughout the game, but they're not really integral to the plot of the video game. They do shape the world though, so if you enjoy the world building of Cyberpunk 2077 or the setting, you should definitely look into the tabletop series. I know I knew nothing about it before I started doing research on this game, and now I am pretty eager to look into it and maybe get a couple of copies for myself. Cyberpunk 2077 was originally set to release in April of this year, 2020. But of course, because this year has been very odd. We'll go with odd. Odd's good. Because this year has been very odd, the game ended up having 3 total delays, and it ultimately released in December 10th. When the review embargo was lifted shortly before the game was released, it was given a Metacritic score of 91, which by now has probably changed. With the critics praising its setting and its story, but mentioning that the game had quite a few bugs and glitches. This turned out to be a gross under-exaggeration, because currently the game is just riddled with bugs and glitches and problems of all sorts. There's currently a lot of drama about this, obviously. If you've been paying attention to any gaming news, that's pretty much what anyone's talking about right now. But it's been mostly about the bugs and the glitches and how poorly it's been handled on CD Projekt Red's side. But I'm going to get into that later. Let me start with the good stuff. So first off, this game is a lot of fun. The main story is very engaging and introduces you to a great cast of characters that you're going to enjoy interacting with throughout your experience. Now, the story is that you are V, a mercenary who ends up meeting your soon-to-be best friend and partner, Jackie Wells. You both end up being recruited for the heist of a lifetime, where you have to steal this special biochip that you're not really told much about. Of course, things go wrong, as these grand heists often do, and you are forced to install the chip in your head to keep it safe. And as it turns out, the chip has a copy of the soul of legendary rocker boy Johnny Silverhand, who was played by Keanu Reeves, who wants revenge on the people who killed him and attacked you. At the same time, you're also trying to get rid of the chip because it's slowly killing you in the process. Now, the gameplay is centered around first-person shooting, with the ability to unlock perks and equip mods that give yourself new abilities. And first-person shooting is pretty new to CD Projekt Red. I mean, up until now, they had only done games for the Witcher series, which are all third-person hack-and-slash combat games. Even so, they did a pretty good job implementing this new style into this game, and it works fairly well. I'll give them credit for that. The body mods that you can buy are similar to games like Deus Ex, and they add abilities like a double jump or a charge jump, in arm blades, or like really strong hands. Cool stuff like that. There's another major ability in this game which you should definitely invest in for upgrading, which is hacking. And this works in two different ways throughout the game. While exploring and just, out and about on the town, you can scan things to find out more info. Now, this is kind of like using your Witcher senses in the Witcher games, where it's kind of like a investigation style mechanic. And you can also hack into computers and such to decrypt info and earn money. During combat, however, you'll use quick hacks, at least that's what they call it, to attack or distract enemies and even shut off cameras and turrets. These hacking abilities are a nice addition, and they feel similar to games like the Watch Dogs series, with how easy and quick they are. I mean, it's literally like you just hold down a button and then choose what you want to do and it's done. And they're also pretty integral to the game. They definitely help doing like stealth segments and such like that. As you go on throughout the game, they become more and more necessary to combat really tough challenges. There's also some influence from games like Saints Row and GTA, with how the city is set up and how funny and weird some of the side missions are. There's also some odd weapon choices in the game, as I'm sure you're seeing here, that I just happened to stumble upon. Yeah, I did not know that this kind of stuff was going to be in the game, but it's there. I don't know what else to say about it. Now, while you can approach most objectives with a run and gun style, there's also the option of stealth. Obviously, stealth will be a slower and more methodical approach to your objective, but the game always tries to give you the choice to do it that way if you so choose, even having its own ability tree with upgrades specifically for doing stealth stuff. The game also has the option to just knock out enemies instead of kill them, and to hide bodies in containers so that they don't see them and alert other enemies. Unfortunately, not every objective is set up well for stealth. When it is, it's usually set up pretty well. But when it isn't, it can make stealth extremely difficult or just downright impossible to do without being seen. Quick acts can help, but they're usually pretty loud, and it's hard to make good use of those until you've really heavily invested in that ability tree. Now, this problem really only happens with the side missions and the gigs, which are just like little small jobs you can do for money, as your objective for those tend to be in small, cramped areas with a bunch of enemies that can see pretty much every spot. The best part about this game, however, is something that most open-world games fall short on, and it's something that CD Projekt Red has always been much better about, and that is the characters. The characters you meet with and interact with in this game are amazing, and I often found myself prioritizing their side missions over main story missions just so I could interact with them and find out more about them. Each major character you meet has their own host of side missions, and each time you complete one of their side missions, you find out a little bit more about them while also improving your relationship with them. Now, because you play the game in first person, interacting with these characters not only reveals more about them, but it also gives you the opportunity to flesh out your character more and more and choose where your allegiances lie. Now, the main person you'll be interacting with in this game is Johnny Silverhand, who is played by Keanu Reeves. Yes, he's the one you'll be interacting with the most. So don't worry, you're going to get lots of Keanu Reeves in this game.
Streets of the future is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking.
He's good. He's really good. I enjoy interacting with him. The reason why you interact with him the most is because his soul is essentially trapped in your head, so he's always popping in to say something. Now, to be frank, he's an asshole most of the time. And he always has to put in his own 2 cents about whatever job you're doing or whatever your objective is, blah, 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 blah. Despite the fact that only you can hear him. No one else can hear him. It's just you. Even so, he has probably the best character arc in the game. I don't want to spoil anything, but he goes from a complete jerk who just wants to take control of your body and do things his own way to what can possibly be a friend who actually helps you get your life back on track. All right. I've talked enough about the good stuff. It's time to address the elephant in the room. The bugs. Currently, this game is just plagued with bugs and glitches. I mean, you can't go more than 5 minutes without encountering some type of bug or glitch. Now, luckily, most of them are small graphical or audio errors and don't really impact the gameplay much, if at all. The most common bugs that I had were things like props floating in the air, sound effects not playing like gunshots and alarms, people's mouths not moving when they talk, and probably the most frustrating yet minuscule one, the game highlighting an item next to the one I'm looking at, which is not the one that I'm trying to pick up. I'm trying to pick up this item here, yet it highlights this item over here. So when I try to pick up this item, it picks up this item. I don't know why, but that one was constantly a problem. Now, for me, most of these problems could be fixed simply by saving and reloading a save, or by quitting out and loading the game back up. Yes, this is far from ideal, and this shouldn't be happening in the first place. But the point is that these bugs and glitches weren't permanent for me. They could be fixed just by reloading a save. Unfortunately, this all changed during the end game, as that was when the bugs that I got were the worst of all time throughout my gameplay. I had people not appearing where they were supposed to, map markers that were just all over the place that led to nowhere, really. Even an invisible wall that prevented me from parking a vehicle and completing an optional side objective. The worst one I had, though, was that a vehicle I needed to get in to start a main mission in the end game didn't spawn in. It just refused to spawn in. It wasn't like it was invisible. It legitimately was not there. Eventually, I had to reload a save from 2 saves back and then go through a bunch of dialogue again just to get the vehicle to spawn. And even then, when it did spawn, it spawned in on top of a bunch of other vehicles that I had to climb onto just to get into the vehicle I was supposed to get in. So it was just a pain in the butt. It wasn't great. Now, I didn't record anything from the end game as I didn't want to spoil any endings to this game because there are multiple endings to this game. So there's no video evidence of these bugs, but trust me, these were the most frustrating bugs I had during my playthrough with this game. I think at one point I just stopped for the night and was like, I'll just continue this in the morning. I really can't deal with this anymore right now. If you've been paying attention to gaming news during this time, you've probably heard about how the PS4 and the Xbox One versions of the game perform the worst, and that seems to be true. However, it's not just that the games on these consoles have bugs and glitches, because every version of Cyberpunk 2077 has these problems. And I didn't even get some of the main bugs people are complaining about online. The biggest issue with the PS4 and the Xbox One versions of this game is the frame rate. Apparently, the game struggles to even reach 30 frames per second on these consoles, which is the bare minimum for modern gaming. Now, my PC isn't the best, and it sits somewhere between an Xbox One and an Xbox Series X in terms of its power. For me, the game ran fairly consistently at 30 frames per second, with the occasional bumps to 60 frames per second when there wasn't a lot happening on screen. So, if you think getting a better console or a nice PC will help with the bugs and the glitches, it won't. That's only going to help with the frame rate and the graphics. They've also publicly apologized for the terrible game quality on these consoles and have promised to work towards fixing these issues by the end of February. Little update about this. Currently, as I am recording this today, PlayStation has removed Cyberpunk 2077 from the PlayStation Store. You cannot download it online for PlayStation consoles anymore. There's no word about when they're going to put it back up. But the reason that they did this was to stop people from buying it and then asking for a refund. CD Projekt Red has said that they will give refunds to anyone who purchased the game digitally. But the problem is that so many people are asking for refunds that PlayStation has just decided to just remove it from their store completely. Xbox has not done this, and there's no word on whether or not they will currently. They might not. But it is pretty concerning to see that the game is totally gone from an entire console's online store because the bugs and the glitches were just so bad. I mentioned earlier that the game has a 91 on Metacritic, but does it deserve it? Honestly, no. At least not in its current state. When the game runs well, it's an amazing experience. Unfortunately, it's currently impossible not to have your experience hampered in some way by the innumerable bugs and glitches in this game. I'd say that right now it probably deserves something within the 80 to 85 range as far as a Metacritic score goes. However, I can't say that I'm surprised by how the game turned out. I'm a huge fan of the Witcher series, and those games were pretty buggy when they came out. I've even been watching my girlfriend play through The Witcher 3 for the first time on PS4, and it's still a buggy mess to this day, with many of the same bugs that I had when playing Cyberpunk. Now, I want to reinforce that I do still enjoy this game, and I'm going to play through it again to get to the secret ending, because I really want that secret ending. But I'm probably going to wait until some big patches roll out before I do that. Hopefully, CD Projekt Red can recover from this and get rid of most, if not all, of the bugs in this game, because I believe that if they can manage to do that and roll out a really good multiplayer experience like the one that they have planned within the next couple of years, this game will stand among the giants as one of the best games of this generation. And they wouldn't be the first to do this. I mean, No Man's Sky was able to pull this off. It took them a few years, but they were able to do it. Now, obviously, that game didn't have a bunch of bugs and glitches. It was just lacking in content overall. But they still managed to pull a game that was reviewed terribly because people thought that they were cheated and make it into something that people love now. The only worrying thing about this is that currently, due to all of the bad press and negative attention that CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk has gotten because of all the bugs and glitches and poor performance, they've lost a lot of money in this. And it's possible that they might not be able to recover financially from this. I'm not saying that that's definitely going to happen, but it is a possibility. I don't want that to happen. I want them to continue to make games and improve upon this one. But I would not be all that surprised if there are some major layoffs in the future, or if some people step down from roles that they have within the company. So thank you for watching this video. This is going to be my last video of the year. Hopefully next year is a much better one for everyone. But for now, I'm going to leave you all with a nice Christmas gift, a montage of glitches in Cyberpunk 2077.